Today we are going to discuss about the managing state and the problem of state in web application under module 5. So the objectives under managing state is the problem of state and passing information through the query strings, cookies and session state. So before going to these objectives, the problem of state we need to understand. The state of management is nothing but whether you are dealing with your own state of mind or whether you are working under some kind of called net-based services like ASP.NET. What is the working condition behind that? It's totally rely on that, heavily rely on that. Now we understand the difference between two things. One is web-based application and Win32 application. If you are familiar with developing these kind of web-based application, then definitely you must be aware about the difference between two things. One is web-based application and another one is Win32 applications. So before going to this, we need to, before understanding these things, we need to persist the state actually. So how to persist the state? That means what the state actually now. Computer knows whether you are using the system. I mean, when you are going to start the system and when you are going to process the application, when you are going to shut down or exist your system. That computers can know. But the thing is, the server doesn't know anything about what the user is and what he is going to start, when he is going to start, and when the will happen, and when he is going to exist the application. So that the server side is having problem, it means it can't hold the information on the client side because it's a stateless protocol. However, so these web services are standard interfaces, or we can say the standard technologies. It's totally rely on to enable the communication between the client and server side. That is a confusing one. Now, when and where the client side is having the application, if server side is not. So this is a problem how we are going to see now. So how we can overcome those problems we are going to see. If, for example, when we're talking about the real life application of this, how to manage the state, when the sun is shining and when we are sitting around overlooking the shipping pond, then the birds are chirping and kids are playing, then there should be a pretty much we have feel good. So that is kind of state of mind how we are dealing, or a few days back when we are working under some kind of pressure or any kind of network based applications, what is the state? So these things we have to understand. So now moving to these objectives. So we already discussed about the problem of state in web applications, when and where. So in this desktop application we have we need to understand how to develop the web based application as well as to develop the Win based application. Better, it is easy to develop these web based applications, is easy, quite better than this. So unlike the unified single process, the typical desktop application, a web application consists of series of disconnected HTTP requests to a web server. In the sense, each and every time your web page is posted to the server. So the why because we need to understand it is a stateless protocol, because the information which it can't hold the information on the client side, so that each time what will happen, the page is posted to the server. So where each request for a server page is essentially a request to run a separate program. The HTTP protocol does not, without programming intervention, it make difference between two requests by one by source from two different sources. However, we know these web services run on different platforms and different languages too. So what's the issue actually? When you're working under the, for example, if you're opening the shopping cart, that is e-commerce site, the user X is getting opening the browser, then you can see the information, you can do processing whatever you want. But the where what processing you have done and where you getting paid, everything will be stored there, because in client side there is no information, server side it can't hold the information actually. So that what will happen, there should be a confusing state in the server side. So client is sending request to the server, but server is issues with these things, means there should be a problem. So we need to overcome that. So the desired outcome, adding product to shopping cart, it will be posted to the server side, and it checking out when how much the user X has paid. So that the confusing item is whether user X or user Y had paid for that. So this is the confusion one. And what mechanism are available within this HTTP to pass information to the server in our request? So we can pass information using this query strings and cookies. When we talking about this query strings, it is a new technique. Query string is a new technique on the client side. So that by using this query string, we can easily pass information from one page to another. How? If you're, when we see, everyone is aware about this URL. So in that URL, we have a string, a long string. So that what will happen in this query, each time the data is getting passed from one page to another. So the data is end up with the end of the page of this URL, and afterward the page is pulling up those data, and it may work. So through this technique, it is easy to pass information by using this query strings and all. And this is how I have discussed in the previous chapter. And when we're talking about these cookies are the client side approach for persisting state information. So before persisting any state, we need to understand what the state is actually. So in that state, what actually the interaction will be happening between the client side and server side. And these are the name value pairs that are in one or more text files that are managed by the browser. While cookie information is stored and retrieved by the browser, the information in a cookie travels within a HTTP header. So in addition to being used to track authenticated users and shopping carts, cookies can implement like remember me and store user preferences, and it track user browsing behavior, all those things. So the user can delete cookies or tamper with them. Site cookie should not depend on their availability for some kind of critical stages. While cookie information is stored and retrieved by the browser, the information in a cookie travels within HTTP header. So these cookies have some limitations. So there are the limitation to around, it can store around 4 KB, and to the number of cookies for a domain. For instance, Internet Explorer limited to domain to 20 cookies. And to learn the maximum number of cookies, you can browse this link. And comparing to this session in that session, that is different, that we will see. And internet 6 and 5 and 6 having the browsers called Opera, Safari, Mozilla Firefox, all those things have some kind of limitations to accessing those pages. But 7 and above is having a lot of advanced features. And cookies, how do they work? User makes first request to page in domain, and then afterwards what will happen, the page with cookie values as a part of it can get the response, and afterwards HTTP response contains cookies in a header. Then afterwards it move to browser saves cookie value in text file and associates with the domain. And afterwards what will happen, user makes another request to page in domain. Then browser reads the cookie value from text file for each subsequent request, and afterwards cookie values that travel in every subsequent request for that particular domain. And after then at last server retrieves these cookie value from request header and uses to customize the response. So all these things will be happening under the get and post methods. These get and post methods have these two methods are the very important protocol under this HTTP. As we all know, this HTTP is a stateless protocol and it can't hold the information on the client side. And this get has some kind of restriction, and post is having there is no restrictions. We can we can't send any sensitive information to, that is one of the drawback in this gate.